Hello, my name is Charlie TCG and welcome to Looking Ahead. Today is the first ever episode and we're looking at Pokemon Scarlet and Violet lists. Post-rotation has hit Japan and I want to showcase to you what decks have been doing well in the past few weekends, some of the lists and a hot take near the end about what decks I think will continue to do well and some decks I feel like which might be on a decline. So first of all, with all the links about where I've got all these items from are going to be in the description below, and also in the corner of the screen will also be who I got them from. So this is a MetaShare pie chart of over 400 decks, on the weeks going from 20th to 21st of January in Japan, right from where rotation hit. And as you can see right at the top, Miraidon is the biggest portion of it. My take is it's a big ticket deck. It has an amazing ability, strong attack, really strong in lightning decks, whether it be tech or a big attacker in the end, utilizing Regieleki and VMAX to do more damage, or Zapdos, or having Ampharos or Raichu or Raikou as other big attackers. It's a super strong, and that's why I think it's the biggest percentage. People want to try it out. It's a new deck. That's why it's so strong. After that, we can see Giratina and Lost Box decks. These decks, they did get hurt by losing Air Balloon, by losing Scoop Up Net, but they also gain a really strong stadium, which gives basic Pokemon not free retreat, one cost of retreat less. So all of a sudden you don't have to be paying retreat manually for your comfy, so you can just freely retreat and attach the energies to your attackers, like Giratina V-Star. Big Parasol isn't in the format anymore, so its V-Star attack can do amazing damage. It can just knock out Pokemon. It also has huge damage output, and I feel like Tina is in such a strong position. You can see in the next slide how strong it really has become. Mew VMAX and Gardevoir, these big, powerful psychic decks. Mew VMAX, one of the best decks that I feel like Pokemon has printed in a really long time, with all in one. Still is really strong. Same thing with Gardevoir, this brand new EX, the ability to flow as many psychic energies as you want. But it's a stage 2. That's why it's probably not performing as well as other decks like Miraidon, because you have to wait till turn 2, potentially even turn 3 for attacking. So there's about 50% of the meta share from the first week. You can see Darkrai has somehow snuck its way in. You might think because all of these here are psychic attackers. So Darkrai can just hit for weakness on all of them, which is probably why Darkrai is going up. It has a brand new support Pokemon tool, Pokemon which can just draw up to F6 when you discard an energy, so really utilizing Moltres V and Dark Patch. So I really like that. Lugia is really falling down from its high, like 30% to like 3%, purely because it loses all of its good, strong special energies. It loses the amazing rares. It loses powerful, it loses Aurora, so it can kind of go to more of a box style deck with the Rapid Strike, Single Strike, and Fusion, because those are where all the most of the special energies are, unless they're colorless energies, or these Rapid Strike, Single Strike, and Fusion Strike. That's kind of where Lugia has to fall under right now. So this is the first week. Miraidon up top, followed by the Giratina and Lost Box and Mew, kind of where you might think, because they are really, really strong, being 40% of these decks. And then if you look at what's happened this weekend, that's completely changed. I did use some translation, so I understand what decks done well. Giratina went from the 11% to 20%, and this is the Lost Box variant. 20% of the meta this was over 3,000 games were played with Giratina V-Star. Insane numbers already, huge difference from last week's with 400 decks, but this is games, so again, decks might be a little bit different. We don't know how many tournaments it is, but that's a huge increase of 20% of the meta of the games were Giratina V-Star, followed by Lost Box decks. So 35% of the meta were Lost Box. This is like Lugia numbers right now. This is insane. Lost Box is incredibly powerful post-rotation. Saying goodbye to Scoop Up Nets, yes, may affect the Lost Box engine, but it also affects the opponents. They can't pick up like their non-rule box Pokemon. So that's really, really powerful. Like with this damage stays, they can hit hard. Giratina is so powerful without having lost we can use Star Requiem all the time. And that's something I feel like is really good in this meta. These are really strong. Followed after this by Miraidon going to 12.1. And I have a theory about why it's dropped from its 14 to 12. The first weekend, everyone wants to play the new deck. Everyone wants to play it out, understand how it works. Even I've joined the hype train and I've been testing already post-rotation lists, which I posted on my Twitter. That will be in the description as well if you want to check some of them out. It's also from my findings, it can be really inconsistent. I'm hitting the 75% of the time, if I go second, getting that damage out in the turn one attack, turn two attack. But when you don't hit it, it's really kind of sad. The idea of it, you're meant to keep up this tempo, you're meant to hit hard, set up your bench board, get potentially some Reaps down, get the attack going, pretty much try and get the pressure to like next turn you're threatening to hit for 280 damage. Then all of a sudden you're hitting for more and more and more. But the deck can be really inconsistent because it's not having a reliable draw Pokemon. You can play in Forever Room, but also that's another 1-1 potentially 2-2 line you've got to play. I play Greninja as a draw, but your draw supporters are going to either be Research, you could potentially play Judge, which I thought about. You can play Serena. It falls away from the wayside and doesn't keep up. Whereas the other Lost Box, you have this constant draw engine, where even with Giratina, if you're hit under Clef Key Lock, you can use Giratina's first attack to put 2 in the Lost Zone, 2 in your hand. You can use Chorus. You can cycle some Pokemon cards into the Lost Zone that way. So it's still just as strong. And Miraidon falling down, most likely it was a big ticket deck. People realize it's inconsistent, and a lot of people have played it less because they realize how strong Lost Box is. Then after that is Lugia. Lugia was another increase, nearly doubling from what it was like in the last week. I think Lugia, people are really understanding how good of a box it can be. You can play the rapid style like Urshifu to hit some Pokemon on the bench, do the big one-hit KOs on decks like the Lightning deck. So the Lightning is really, really good. You have Umbreon as well. Umbreon can deal with Mew, can deal with Gardevoir, and also has Gust, and also can use Earn Fatality to shuffle the energies back in. It's really, really powerful, really strong. Not the Lugia like we once saw, like what we're seeing right now in our format, but more of like a box style deck, which I think is still good. Again, Gardevoir is next with 6.6%, still strong, but kind of falling a bit by the wayside. Not as strong as what it was last time, because I feel like it is stage 2. It takes a while to set up. You probably will have to play Clef Keys to really utilize the power up as quickly as possible. But you don't have this big psychic Pokemon to finisher. You have your Zacians, you have your Mew Unions. You also have Gardevoir and Galate on its own. Like, it has an amazing draw engine, but I feel like with stage 2, people aren't going to play it as often. And then the biggest fall is Mew VMAX being 6%. It went from being 8 to 6. That's a big drop a little bit, but I feel like the reason why it's dropping a little bit is because people probably want to try out some Lost Box. People want to try some other decks. Mew is still just as strong. Like, Mew didn't lose many cards. It's still just as powerful as it once was. And then after that is, weirdly, Giratina, but with Arceus. So Giratina is still just as strong, and that's nearly about 70% of the meta. You can see that it's Lost Box primarily decks, followed by Miraidon, which is about 50% of the meta, then Lugia, Mew, and Gardevoir, kind of the decks you feel like would be what's doing well. Then what's also really helpful about these people is they released the win percentage. They showed how the deck has performed, its wins, losses, how many games they use this data from, and it's also percentage. As you can see, all of the top 6 decks I talked about, only one of them has a below 50% win rate, and that's Gardevoir. I feel like with Gardevoir, it has a higher win rate than I thought it would, but because it can use these big beefy attackers, I feel like that's kind of the reason why it's saved up. But I feel like it's still not as good as I want it to be right now. I've been testing out some lists for Gardevoir. I still really enjoy the list. I really love how powerful it is. The curly is for drawing. the Gallade to search for a supporter. It's a really good, like the whole engine in one, but it needs like these big attackers, and that's the only thing it's losing. Lost Box, Giratina, and also normal have these huge win rate, and look how many games. You total that up, that's 1,000 games. Totaling up all of here, which is insane. Like the win rate is just blows my mind about how good it is. Horizon still has a decent win rate. Again, very close. And Lugia pretty high as well. And Mew again, really high. But the biggest thing to take away, I feel like, is don't just look at this and go, oh, Horizon's got 52% win rate. I'm going to pick it up because it's really good. Always think about these are taken from a best of one format. Japan is a different way than how we play. They do best of one, we do best of three. So it's a much more simple, not like simpler, but much more different understanding to how it's going to affect us. It is helpful to understand like what's done well, what hasn't done well. And like looking at these percentage, it's really, really good. But it shows you what's good. It shows you some other decks as well. We can look down here. I'm unsure what some of these decks are, but some of them, this one here doesn't have a really good win rate, but you look at how many games it has, 54. Would you trust a deck with 54 games or 556? This has more games, it gives you better understanding on the list. This is really helpful, and these people here post every other day about the meta share and also the win rates, which I think is really helpful to understand and really kind of help you know what is going to do well and prepare you for post-rotation when it hits us in March, in about a couple months. Now I'm going to show you some of the lists. These are rough ones. Again, the links to where these people are. The socials are below where I got them from. This gives you a better understanding about what some of these lists look like. I'm not going to break down exactly card for card about why this is good. I'm just going to showcase to you why I feel like they are going to be strong and what it kind of loses. So if we look at this Giratina V-Star, it literally adds 3 new cards from the current, the new rotation. It adds Nest Ball reprint, so Nest Ball really, really strong, and also the Beach Court, which is the free retreat for basic 12. I say free retreat basic, all of these have 1 retreat your basics do except Giratina and Drapion. And then it goes to 1 retreat, still really, really good. It has a higher switching outs because you want to try and get there as much as possible as a 2-2 split, because Nest Ball is so strong in Lost Box because you're not discarding any important cards. You're not like discarding like some energies you might need or supporters. So I really, really like it. Thornton, I think, is really strong because we say goodbye to Ordinary Rod. So you can still argue you could play Clara or Thornton, but Thornton is instant like, oh, it's comfy. Let's now change it to Giratina, evolve to V-Star, and all of those sort of jazz. I think this is a really simple, bulk standard Giratina V-Star list, very similar to one that I have been practicing and building. So 100% try this one out, see if it's you're feeling like it, because this is pretty much one of the best decks right now in the format. The Lost Box decks kind of go, I feel like, the best way to go back to Sablezard or focusing highly on Sableye. Now, why do I say this? You can still use a Mirage Gate like the Kyogre or just a random build, but saying goodbye to Scoop Up Net with Kyogre decks, you're not going down to the bottom of your deck as quickly as possible. And that can be a real struggle if you're wanting to focus on getting out the Kyogre like late game, because you have to focus on Comfies. You do lose. I feel like Klefki can really slow down this deck more than Giratina, because as I said, with Comfies out, with not Comfies, with what's it called again? Klefki, I literally just said that. Wow. I've got so many Pokemon running through my head, I just slipped my mind. You can use Giratina's attack to put cards in the Lost Zone if they have a Klefki active, whereas here, they set up 2 Klefkis, you're not going to rope around it, so you may have to argue to play cancelling Colognes. But again, you can't even attack with Cramorant, you've got to attack with the Sableye. So it's a real big, long process. Like you either have to play cancelling clones if you're really, really scared of Klefki, or it's in both these. So if you think about it in this one, you're playing boss as well as cross switcher, bring something else out to try and attack it that way. This deck does play Halucha. Halucha is like Zigzagoon, but you could attack, you target 2 Pokemon, but they have to be on the bench. So that can work really well with attacking with going 2 Comfies and Stabilize to knock those 2 out, or stuff like that. I feel like also you can see it has high nest ball counts. This deck isn't playing the VIP pass, but this list is. This list is playing court and path. This list isn't, but higher switch cards. So again, very different. I would say right now it's a good way to understand. Try out some of these lists, see if this is what you are wanting to try out. But right now, I'm working a bit more on the Tina list than with the Lost box. But I want to understand, see what the next weeks can come along, see if these Mirage Gate Lost box decks can come out on top and be up there as one of the top. Now we're talking about Miraidon. I really love this deck. I've been testing it, but again, like I said, it's not as consistent as I would have wanted it to. This one here shows two different versions. Over here, more of a support card with utilizing Mareeps and maybe Regieleki and Ampharos, whereas here it's used as a higher count with Regieleki VMAX to try and use that as the attacker because this plays the new Max Elixir card, which you can look at top 5 cards of your deck and attach 2 lightning energies you find there to one of your lightning Pokemon in play. It doesn't have to be basic, which is what Max Elixir was, and it's 1 less, but there's 2 more energies, a higher reward. But as you can see in both this list here is playing 4 draw supporters and a Greninja, while this one here is playing only 8 draw supporters and a Greninja, while this one's only playing 4 draw supporters. Very different to what I've kind of been testing it. But this list here, posted by over here this weekend, did actually come second. And it went 5-1. So it is really powerful, really strong. Was it 4-1? Anyway, the link to that description isn't below. You can see they are these more box style decks. This is using Raichu V from Brilliant Stars, which is 60 times 60 for each lightning energy you have in play. So utilizing Mareep, it can just hit really, really big damage. Even if you have Lecky VMAX, I've hit over 500 damage with this Raichu because you can just get all these energies out really quickly. Both these lists aren't playing the Forest Steel Stone. I think Forest Steel Stone is really strong in Miraidon, especially also Avon as well, which also isn't playing in both lists. I think those cards are going to be very important for Miraidon. Again, these are early stage lists. We just passed the second weekend. They're still trying out the list. I feel like it isn't right now where it should be, Miraidon. There's still so much to work on. And I feel like with Miraidon EX, it takes some time because it is a big ticket deck. It's one of the decks that people are talking about, but it can be very inconsistent if you're not hitting everything. If someone just starts Lone Klefki, you can't set up your board right. So it is a lot of more lose conditions, but it's still just as strong. And I think it will translate when it comes eventually into English. Sorry if you randomly hear chirping, that's just my cat in the background. But I feel like Miraidon is still just as powerful. Again, early few weeks, let's see what happens. Now let's talk Lugia. Lugia V-Star, a deck which has been dominating our format since Silver Tempest was released, has now lost all its good special energies, lost the amazing rares, and now it's going to a box style deck. The one above is Rapid Strike, and the one below is Single Strike. I'll talk about a Single Strike one because you have Umbreon as a gust effect. You can use Owner Vitality to recycle your Single Strike energies. It can hit hard, it hits into Gardevoir and Mew for weakness, and you also have Stone Journer, so you can hit into the fighting type Pokemon. That's the fighting type weak Pokemon. This is really, really strong. I think having the 4 Nestle 4 Ultra really good, but it loses Evolution Instinct, so people are trying to capture an Aroma, which you just literally have to flip a coin and just hope you get the right one if you get an evolved Pokemon or a basic. I feel like that can be a bit inconsistent, and I'm not a huge fan of it. And I feel like Lugia isn't as strong as it once was, but it's trying to keep up with the cards it has for it. If we look at the other more Rapid Strike list, you have a higher special energy count. You're playing some gift energies. You're playing VMAX. You also can use the evolving one to heal some damage. You're playing Cheryls. You have really good specialty stadiums. I feel like they are just as powerful, but they're not as strong as they once were. I know that this counters what I've said. I feel like with Lugia, it needs some more work. I think we need a few more sets to see what special energies we're going to have access to or other attackers we can use Like right now, they're using the big ticket, like good single strike and rapid strike Pokemon. And then eventually we're going to go into when we get the new special energy cards, we're going to see these new attackers. So Lugia, right now, I don't think he's like put in your binder for now. I think try testing some of these lists out. I think he's not gone yet, but it's still just as powerful. You can see both lists are playing Professor Barnett, and I think that's a good staple because it's instant discard for Archeops because they're only playing 3 of each in each one. Again, stuff to consider. I've played a bit of Lugia. I'm not like super sold on this new list, but it is in the top five decks, so definitely consider it. Next one I want to talk about is Gardevoir. I'm a big fan of Gardevoir, and these are 2 lists which I feel like are the more common ones. You have like a Klefki Mewtwo V Union, so it can be a lot slower. Like you set the Klefki up, you can just try and slow down the opponent while you build up your big board, try and get like the Mewtwo V Union. You can use Cheryl to heal from your Gardevoir, little bit damage, and then put some of these psychic energies back. Or you play over here with like the more heavy split on the Gardevoir line. You play this other Gardevoir here, which do more damage. You also play the Galade to get supporters, and you also play the Roar of the Sword Zacian to kind of be your big attacker and high energy counts. Now, my thoughts on this is this Gardevoir here, these have won well, these have done well. This Gardevoir list here, it's really slow. You're not going to get a Gardevoir out till turn 2 because you're not playing, no, turn 3, sorry, because you're not playing Rare Candy. And that can just be really, really slow, especially in the format where people can just like hit really hard. Like if this deck isn't relying on basic abilities, which to be fair, a lot of decks really are, it can just lose. And that's something which I feel like is really much a tragedy for Gardevoir. Being the stage 2, like it's an amazing ability to flood your board of energies. But like I said, stage 2, it's really weak to just trying to get it out. You have to either rely on Rare Candy, but you do have the Curliers to draw lots and lots of cards, get the Psychic Energy in the discard, get the Mewtwo the Union piece in the discard. Over here we have much more focusing on the draw, but also has other attackers. It has high ways to search out cards. It has a Forest Steel Stone. It has really high supporter counts, but you're playing the Power Pad to reuse them with Galade later. I'm a big fan of more this build is where I'll be going towards Gardevoir, having other attackers, having a Greninja more draw. Whereas this one here, yes, it's good, but I feel like it isn't as strong right now as I want it to be. Again, these are really early lists of Gardevoir. I feel like people again are still working out where it's going to go. I feel like it's going to go more towards this build, but Psychic needs a really strong finisher, and right now we don't have that. So we'll see where it's going to come in the next few sets, and people are going to be fearing what's going to do well. There isn't a big tournament in Japan for a while. As soon as that comes out, I will break down what's done well, and we can discuss in detail about what I feel like how that's going to impact British meta. The British meta, the Western meta, what we're used to. And then finally, the last one is Mew VMAX. This is a deck which is never left the top lists for ever since it was printed back in 2021. Both of them are very different. This is the Fusion Strike build. This is the regular build. Fusion Strike like the energy. This one here, they also play Featherball, which is really good to get your free retreaters, which you can basically get Mew and Mew VMAX. It's really, really powerful, not relying on Battle VIP path like this list is. Nest Ball is really strong, so you don't have to discard cards, very important ones with Quick Ball. But yeah, it still is a path Judge deck. This deck plays 4 Judge, this deck plays 2 Judge. But it plays 1 Power Pad, this also plays Power Pad, this also plays Penny to go around with Genesect. I think this is a really strong version of a list. I think it's really, really powerful. It shows that if you look at this, it doesn't really add too many cards. You're looking at it, this deck plays Avian, which I really like. This plays Nest Ball. This also plays Nest Ball. Weirdly, Fatality Band, but it can do more. It's like guaranteed does 10 more damage. I think it's really strong. I think Mew, if you haven't picked it up, you can literally buy the box, like the Battle Trainer box, pick one up, understand it, test it. I think Mew isn't going to disappear. The only reason I feel like these Psychic decks near the bottom is Dark is going to keep them in check. But I think Mew just won a regionals in Liverpool. Really keep an eye on this. it has a much more ball-heavy search engine. This new one has still high switching outs, still the path build. So people are still running this, which is really good to see. It's really powerful, but I do see it as a little bit of decline, judging from it was the 4th place deck and went down to the 6th place deck. We will see where this goes next weekend. So here are my hot takes at the end of this video. What I think are going to go well, what I think are going to slowly decline. The decks I feel like which are still going to keep on increasing are going to be the Lost Box decks, the Giratina, the Comfies. They increased last weekend. I see them still increasing. I think they, like I said, they haven't lost too many things that people are going to work on the best option for Lost Box. So eventually we're going to get back into other Mirage Gate like builds, whether it be the Kyogre build, more Zamazenta. And I think Giratina is just going to carry on thriving. It's right now looking, I feel like, as the tier 1, like the BDIF right now. And I also feel like Lugia, weird take, I think it's going to carry on increasing. As people work out what the best cast to put in this box style Lugia is, it's still going to be just as strong. And the decks I feel like are going to decrease is Miraidon EX. Miraidon did drop by 2%. That's not like a lot as people may talk about, but even from my testing, so I've seen like some of the lists that are doing well, some other people's theories have posted on Twitter. It's not as consistent as I would want it to be. There still needs to be time. I can, like talking in the English matter, we still have a couple months to really work on, like refine the list. We've got to see what's happening in Japan. It can do really well, but as soon as it gets one attacker going, you might have to take so much to try and get like another one. It can just fall by the wayside. And Mew VMAX, I feel like it's just going to fall under some trap of like if the dark attackers increase, it's going to obviously fall down a little. It can still keep up, but I feel like it's going to fall down a little as people try and test out some more lists. But don't sleep on Mew because I feel like it might decrease now, but it's going to increase in a few weeks. So this is my fun prediction of what I feel like has been happening in the looking ahead in the Japanese meta. I hope you've enjoyed and found this informative by seeing some of the new lists, by seeing what decks have been performing well, whether it be the brand new Miraidon or like the Giratina V-Star, and comment down below what deck you're really excited to try out in post-rotation, and also what decks you were surprised have been doing well. For me, Giratina V-Star was a tiny bit of a surprise by how strong it was, but then I remembered, oh wait, it was 8K kept by Big Parasol. As soon as that went, it was really strong. Anyway, next week, I'm going to be discussing about what happened in this weekend's tournaments in Japan, as well as some predictions, what I think could do well in OTIC, which is happening really soon. But yeah, anyway, thank you for watching. Please leave a like and comment down below. Subscribe if you're new, and I will see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.